Hello and welcome back to Wisdom in Action, the podcast where we explore what it takes to bridge the gap between knowing and doing, because that's where the real wisdom is born. I'm Oster Putninja, resilience coach and podcast strategist. I created this space to have honest conversations with real experts and bring you practical insights you can apply, not just think about. Today, we are joined by Sarah Shaffer. Shaffer? I messed it up. Shaffer, sorry. She's a no BS speaker and life strategy coach who helps overwhelmed women break free from emotional chaos and get unstuck with clarity, humor, and heart. Sarah, welcome to Wisdom in Action.
Oh, thank you, Astra. It's amazing to be here. You know, as we talked about just a couple seconds ago, your title says it all. And I find myself just completely drawn to women who are embodying, these concepts.
Love it. So to start off, what is one piece of wisdom that changed everything once you started applying it?
Well, I would say that the biggest piece is within my sobriety, that wisdom, the understanding that for me, it was never about the booze. It was never about the alcohol. It was the dumpster fire that was going on up here that, created all these emotions and all of this stuff that we, as women, we stuff down like emotional spanks. We just keep putting it in, thinking it's going to look great. But we got the boob fat and the back fat, and your leg is numb because, it's cut off the circulation. And we think we're looking fantastic like everybody's told us to do. And so for me, for my trauma history and everything, all I wanted was this feeling not to be. And to numb it because there was so much going on because life just keeps lifing. We don't really get a pause, except in our mind. We get to pause our mind for a moment. And when I realized it wasn't about the booze and getting that clarity and releasing, when I can connect the dots of, oh, that's why I was the dirty mistress. That's why I made horrible choices to my body and, all of those things, then we can release them. That's where they're released, is when we verbally vomit them out. We say it doesn't matter how crazy it is, because when it's stewing in here, all she does is build and build. And our perception is our reality, but our perception may not be reality. And we know that when we let those thoughts just out, for me, left to my own devices, I can set my own ass on fire in a nanosecond. In a nanosecond. And to have somebody, to have a place, to feel safe that, yes, you can say, I drove with my children drunk. I handed my then 13-year-old what I thought was a bottle of water, and it was a bottle of straight vodka. I was licking the bottom of the barrel. And that clarity and wisdom is that the best gift I could ever give my children was to show them you can get as low as possible and still get the fuck up. Get up.
There's so many things actually to unpack just within this. First of all, what helped you to actually take that? Well, one is realize, because you have lived like that for, this wasn't even like a few years. I think it was decades.
Yes, decades.
What was it that actually got you to the point where you were like, something needs to change? And with that, what helped you to take that first step? Because with realization, a lot of times there's so much shame, so much embarrassment that comes with that. It
That
can eat us up.
awareness. Yep. That awareness is that's the first key. So, for trauma survivors, and we sit there and we say, I'm not going to do that to my kids. I'm not going to do that. And while the actions, my abuser was my father. And so there wasn't anything, I'm like, oh, well, I'm better than that. I'm better than that. And my drinking and my carrying that trauma, I didn't ask for my childhood, but neither did my children.
Yeah.
Neither did my children. And why did I feel it necessary for them to understand what I went through? I don't want them to ever know that. And So that anger, that rage, that shame, that now I'm drinking in the car, I'm drinking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, anything that wasn't nailed down. If my eyes were open, there was a bottle in my mouth. And everything was imploding because for the long part of the drinking, I was a mother of two. My youngest had a rare disease and a stem cell transplant when my oldest was 3 years old. I developed a foundation. I started the first cord blood program. I was working full time at United Healthcare. I was killing it
Up front. Yeah.
whilst destroying myself and destroying my children. So I wasn't doing the same abuse, but that impact, why doesn't mommy love me enough to not drink? So all of that I was perpetuating. And when I handed that bottle, and I had already been to rehab once, and I handed the bottle to my my oldest after he swam the mile, and he looked at me and he said, "It's fucking vodka, you fucking drunk." And I begged him not to tattle on me to my husband. And he got my husband on the phone and he's like, "Mom just handed me a bottle of vodka." And my husband's response was, "I don't even know what to, just don't worry about it, honey. Come home." Not to me, to him. She's going to do whatever she's going to do. She's going to. And that I'm sitting there and I'm like, what on earth is this? So I booked my ticket to Betty Ford. And when I got there, the whole trip, that was a debacle during COVID and trying to finagle yeah, that last blow up, I took her to the nth degree. And when I went to my counselor the first time in Betty Ford, I sat there and my daddy issues and the towers fell and my baby and this. And he kept stopping the page 417 out of the big book on acceptance, life on life's terms. And he looked right at me and he goes, "What the fuck are you going to do about it?" Okay, I hear you. Those things are real. What are you going to do about it? I was never going to get my day in the ring. Never. And to sit with that and to accept that. Awareness, acceptance, and it's been, May 1st was 4 years. And
Congratulations.
in that, I've transformed my relationships with my children. I've transformed my relationship with my husband. I've transformed my relationship with myself. Because if I'm not whole, then I am nothing to anybody else. I cannot serve them in any capacity, and that whole concept of, no, I can't go to rehab. I can't do that. I can't be away. Dude, they didn't want me there. They didn't want me there. I was getting fired from jobs. I mean, just everything all at once. And not once did my husband threaten to leave. He very clearly told me that I was killing myself. And that's exactly what I was doing. Let's call that one out. Absolutely, I was trying to kill myself slowly because it would make sense. No one would question it. I wouldn't have actually killed myself, and I would have relieved everybody else.
And you wouldn't have to take responsibility for it as well.
Bingo. Ownership. Accountability.
Question.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. Sorry.
I had a question on the acceptance. Like, what was the hardest thing about that acceptance? Partly because I think, like most of these things, easier said than done. And it's not like a one done deal. And it's not like you had only one thing to accept. It's all the past decisions that led you to this point, and not only accept what you did, but also who you are and how you have affected others. There's so many things to accept. And it doesn't mean that the moment you accept, you're now in a better place. You're
For
still in the
sure,
same
there's
mess.
so much work. But the work becomes, think about how hard it is to be miserable. How much effort, how much energy and time and coordination it takes to be an alcoholic. Good Lord, the hiding alone, and then you forget where you hid it and the kids find it. I mean, the whole thing's a freaking hot mess express. And when you realize that it's this dumpster fire and you're the one dousing it in alcohol and lighting the match, I can no longer, it's radical acceptance and radical accountability. Because when I finally sat there and said, I can no longer point fingers at anybody. I am not responsible for the things that happened to me or around me. I did
Yeah.
not fly planes into the Twin Towers. I did, well, yes, genetically we gave my kid the disease, and what I was realizing is that I'm not responsible for those things, but I am absolutely fucking responsible for every single one of my actions and behaviors. And I cannot point. You do not make me drink. You do not make me blow up. You do not make me lose my job, lose my head, make me miserable. No, that radical awareness, accountability, and action is right friggin' here. And when you stop pointing the fingers, it can become much more clear. Because when you're pointing, there's too many paths. You're all over the place. And when this is the dumpster fire, I wrote a book, The Dumpster Fire Diaries, and people are like, well, I'm not a dumpster fire. Look at me. I'm a physician. I'm this, I'm that. Mm-hmm. How's your thinking doing? How do you sleep? How
What
does
happens when you're by yourself?
It's the quiet and the alone. Yep.
What helped you to stop pointing fingers, even to see that you have been doing it, and then take that ownership? Because it's such a it is, even thinking about it, it's such a heavy task to do.
So, women as a whole, we are told not to pat ourselves on the back, take pride in I'm a fucking survivor. And when I started looking at myself that way, all of the things that I survived and all of the things that I did whilst surviving those things, I had to step back and be like, you know what, honey? You have the ability to do so much more. I did that when I was drinking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Imagine what you can do when you're clear. So, but that, the stopping pointing fingers is that connecting the dots. When I verbally vomited out all of the nonsense, all of the crazy things. I think I'm a blood-sucking, eyeball-eating vampire from my previous lives, and this is my penance, and, all of that. But when I recognized that I was the core of my dumpster fire, and it's scary, but do you see me smiling? Because it answers my questions. There is no answer to why. Why did this happen to me? Nope. There is no why. And I start to really strategize. I look at life as a game. I have to. These moving pieces are coming at me nonstop. My transplant kid, blind in one eye, completely blind in one eye, partially blind in the other, missing 14 teeth. Now, at 15 years old, he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, directly connected to the transplant, which we knew was a possibility. What the fuck? I stood out on that lawn and was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And I don't even know. That's my universe, and that's my gal. I love her. And that acceptance that there is something bigger than me. And with sobriety, when you were kind of asking about that, the acceptance piece. So sobriety and AA and trauma therapy and doing all of that stuff. And I was still waking up wanting to kill 19 people, and half of them were already dead. And it was a miserable way to start my existence on that day. And I said to my husband, I said, all right, I feel like I get to this brick wall and I can see on the other side everything that I have worked tirelessly to rectify, rebuild, all of that. And there's just a tiny little hole in the mortar. And I'm like, I can see you, but I can't get to you. And it was these intrusive thoughts, the whys, the this. And when trauma, we know how this goes. And we can control what we do with them. We cannot control that they come in. I mean, this whole
Yep.
like, let go and you'll be, and nothing will
Think
ever happen
nothing.
again. It's
Yeah.
fine. No. Sorry, Charlie. Not the plan.
And also
So,
another thing I want to add there, like if you have those thoughts coming to you, it doesn't mean you're failing. It's just your brain doing its thing. And I think that's something a lot of people think is that, oh, me thinking, well, first of all, it's distinguishing you are not your thoughts. It's just automatic patterns that are happening. But secondly, once you realize them, you see them and you see them coming, having negative thoughts, having doubts, having all these negatives, it doesn't mean that you're failing. It's just part of human existence. Like we have those thoughts. It doesn't mean anything about you if you have them negative.
and you're absolutely correct. And one of the things that I say to my physicians, I'm a social worker in the hospital, is the brain is the most complex organ in the body and the least understood and the least respected. And so it's a muscle and it can be retrained. It can be rewired. So, you imagine you're an athlete, you're doing it. You're not going to get to the Olympics just by doing one exercise. No, and it's a whole practice. And so, we're at that brick wall and these thoughts are still coming. And I said to my husband, because I wanted to do the ketamine assisted therapy. And I said, it's still controversial. It's still, but been proven for decades and centuries, and all of this stuff that we're finding out with the mushrooms and all of that stuff that everybody's been talking about since the beginning of time is actually real and very, very beneficial. And so I said, if I had cancer, we would take me to any hospital and pump me full of chemo, which is a poison, and pray that it works. I said, this is a cancer of my brain. I said, and if I don't fix it, all of this work is, so, and by fixing, I meaning I need that extra oomph. So I started the ketamine and it, reroutes the neural pathways. And with the integration, which can be meditation, your walks, I look myself in the eye in the mirror every day and I go through my thoughts and I say them out. I look like a nutcase walking my dog because I talk out loud. It just gets it out. And I hear myself, when you say these things out loud, you're like, oh, wait a minute. That doesn't make sense. But if they're just swirling here, she just builds and builds and builds and builds and becomes that cancer. So I did. It's been 2 years. And for me, it's it's just maintenance. I don't do it every day. It stretches out to maybe 2-3 weeks in between sessions. And I know when I'm starting to need it. I know when those thoughts are becoming a little bit relentless. And I don't want to get to the point of being that rolling dumpster. I don't want to be the rolling dumpster fire. I know she's going to keep coming. I just got to keep up right beside her. I don't have to jump in myself. And that's the clarity.
Yeah, it's something that I actually realized about the negative thoughts a few years ago. And I was back in UK. I was sitting on the floor crying. I don't remember why, but I remember I was crying and I had this visual where I could see like these like dark demonistic creatures or whatever like circling. And this was the negative thoughts. And I realized what I would usually do is I have this thought, I take it, I read it, I feel like it's true and it makes me feel even worse and I start to cry even more worse. It's kind of like it makes it worse. And I remember that day I was like, I just won't touch them. It's just thoughts. I'm just observing them. They're circling. It doesn't mean that they're true. It doesn't mean that I have to pay attention to them. It's hard not to, but I see them, but I'm not doing more than just looking at them. And that's when I realized that, like, and since then, like, a lot of times, even with the crying, I'm like, okay, I feel like last year I got, like, for the first time I got back to basketball. Like, we had a team, we signed up for like amateur league, and I was so excited for the first game. And just that week, we had like game on Sunday. On Tuesday, I injured my ankle where I knew it's bad. I knew I'm out for at least a few months. And I had this like little grief moment where I was like, the little me in me was so sad because I was so looking forward to that. It's been 10 years. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to give myself space to grieve on it and just feel bad about it and just let it out. And I literally, the way I say about crying is I cry and I'm like, is there anything else that wants to come out? Okay, let's cry a bit more. Am I good? Okay, I'm good. And then I can just move on. And it's kind of just like even that relationship with our emotions, which I know you have something to add, but like, that's the next thing that I'll get into it. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, no, no. I mean, so when you're talking about that little person, so for me, women were told not to listen to her. That's that squirrely belly. The fight, flight, and freeze and our gut reaction, that's an actual real thing. So when she says, "Oh, something's not right," and shh, no, no, mm-mm. Or she's been down there going, "Hi, it's me. Please just pay attention to me." And that's why she keeps you going all squirrely when you're not. And you're paying attention to all these other things that you cannot control.
Yep.
I think that was another big piece for me for acceptance of that. I am type A personality. You give me, I control everything in my own lunatic world.
Yep.
Absolutely. And that acceptance, I cannot control other people's reactions. I cannot control what happens in the world. We're living in the US. I can't control any of it. And as a woman, this is very hard here. I mean, again, on the outside, it looks like, oh, everything's fabulous for American women. And the underlying is the masks that we put on, the things we put up with, the things we dismiss, and that's everywhere. We're not unique. It's everywhere for women. And I think once we start, really bonding together, that yeah, it's us, not a you and me, it's us. But that little girl, our spidey sense, that's what I call my spidey sense. And I listen to her now. I no longer dismiss her. I accepted her because I know her intention. And that's kind of where I've gotten to at almost 52 years old, is I judge everything on intention. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to botch things up. There was no intention to harm my children, but I absolutely did in my actions and behaviors. And I just have to accept that. I accept that. I've sat down with my kids now. I'm like, dude, you are not sitting in a therapist chair or spending money when you're 30 years old. Come on, bring it on. Which is why, I mean, everything's out on the table. I have nothing to look over my shoulder for. And that's freeing. That to me is amazing. And that loss of giving a fuck what you think about me. I am working day in and day out to maintain, to improve. And yes, I did those things. And I will absolutely be the first one to raise my hand. And it's almost always been a defense mechanism. Like if I've gotten in trouble at work, I'll call my boss and be like, "You're going to get a call." Yeah, I pissed them off. Because I'd rather be out in front of it. But when it was solely about me, I just wanted to hide. And that shame with abuse from a parent, that I will give is a little bit unique. Because of the entire universe that's going to screw you over, there's two people that we were taught to believe would be live or die. And when that to sit there, what was wrong with me? Why, what on earth? And that swirling dumpster fire, she ugly. We don't like it. But she doesn't serve me. Those coping skills, those survival skills that I cultivated during all of those times, they served me at that moment. But realizing that they don't serve me anymore, when people say, well, that's just the way I am. How's it working for you?
Yeah.
How is it? And if that's just the way you are, that's fine. Then shut up. You don't get to complain about anything. Like that's how I deal with my kids. Like if you do not like it, you need to look at yourself and what it is about your interactions and what you don't like. Is it that you're accepting a behavior? That's on me. If you're acting like a total douche and it pisses me off and I keep going back for more, that's on me. And understanding that other people are not responsible for my triggers.
Yeah.
Now, again,
talk on this more. This is very important.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Like it's something that it's so important to touch on, because it's something that I see a lot in that they made me feel this way. Okay, I get where you're coming from, but they said something that triggered something within you to feel a certain way, and it's much more empowering to take your power back instead of you made me feel this way. It's like, hold up, what you just said made me feel this way. And then you can actually open up the door to go and explore, go and learn. It's kind of the way I talk about triggers is now it's much harder when you're at the beginning of healing journey. It's way different because then it's so terrible. Like every trigger, it's really bad.
Yes.
But now when I'm in a healthy place overall, where I look at
we're all nuts. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I know. But when I get triggered, I look at it as a gift that I'm like, ooh, what do I need to work on this time? Let's unwrap, let's learn, let's look into it. And I'm approaching it, and that's a big difference. Approaching it with curiosity instead of judgment.
You just hit so many nails on the head. Because it's that, again, not giving us self-credit for the things that we have accomplished and survived, but looking at the gifts that were given to us. Come on, guys, we don't need a doctor or a scientist to tell us that we're products of our childhood. And I don't need another research study to tell me that. And shoot, my mind just went, I joked myself out of the next line.
For me, it happens so often that a lot of times I actually like to, it's kind of like, I actually had one of my clients, she has a podcast on healing stuff, and she would say that for her, it actually is, it's kind of like trauma, like it's coming from trauma because like she would have really scattered mind. Because of the trauma. It's not really like, and she would try, and now she has it way less because she has healed. But when she would talk, she actually would lose a thought, or she would like kind of, it would be scattered. And she would feel like, oh, something's wrong with me. But then the more she looked into trauma, explored it, she was like, oh, it's a reaction, or it's like kind of the result of me having gone through trauma, because your brain develops way differently if you're in unsafe, unstable environment. It's not the same as if you have this.
Yeah, and that hits on that fight, flight, and freeze. And if she's been on fire since day one, she's haywire, and she doesn't know the difference between real and perceived. She doesn't, and she's so short-circuited and so, and that's that retraining. That's that rerouting those neural pathways. And just kind of going back to the ketamine, I run around the hospital. I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm the guinea pig. I want everybody to know what it's about. And physicians' eyes, they'll be like, And I said, all right, if an artery in my heart was blocked what's my cardiothoracic surgeon going to do? He's going to reroute the artery. Why do you believe that's not, that can't happen with the brain? And it stops them in their tracks because because we don't understand. We don't understand this body. I'm sorry. The letters MD represent your education and your experience. They do not mean you understand how two cells that created you and me and everybody else works. You don't.
You just know they do.
But unfortunately, as the general public, we walk in, we'd be like, yep, you know everything. And I work with physicians and the residents to be on that vulnerable, on that realistic realm. Guys, stop it. This storybook that we were read as women of how life was going to be, total load of crap. Your medical book that says that you can fix everything, total load of crap. And we're in this medical mayhem position, and it's not working. And what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same behavior, expecting a different outcome. Okay, you've done the same thing for decades. We've done the same thing for decades. And it is that thinking. And when those thoughts that you're talking about with your friend with the podcast, the thoughts go in and out, and we train her. Like, okay, I really don't need to know who lives down that street. And those are conversations I'll have with my husband in the car. I'll be like, don't they live down there? He's like, who? I'm like, I don't know. He looks at me and goes, did we just have that conversation? Yes, we did. Just move on, sweetheart. It's okay. I'm not having a stroke. Don't worry.
Can you talk a bit on that, or did you find what was it that the drinking was helping you regulate? Because I heard on one podcast about how it helped me to understand, like my main thing would be like binge eating. And when I would and I would listen to this podcast and this person would explain it so well what it is, and I was like, oh shit, that's what I had.
Yeah.
And I know that there was like several times when I have always been into sports, like I have always been super active, and but my weight would like fluctuate. A lot of it also was like beliefs with like, I would have this belief from like experiences in the past. I'm fat, ugly, and clumsy. Those are like 3 beliefs that I would always carry with me until they became, well, not that they became true. The fat one became
we manifested.
true. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And like what happened there was that I remember one day I was going on a walk. I have had at least one experience where I actually got results, like visually, physically. But I was like back at like higher weight. And I was on this walk and I was thinking, I think that I just haven't learned the lesson that I need to learn within being at this size. I'm trying to fluctuate. I'm trying to fix the problem at the surface level, but I don't think that's it. And also, not only that, I would isolate myself from experiences because of the way I would look. I would be like, oh, I can't do this because like I'm out of weight. I can't do out of shape, or like I can't do this or that. And I ended up like running my first half marathon being like I wasn't skinny or anything. I was like proper out of shape. But even with that, it was like there was a time when I would be so ashamed. Like I would wake up at 5 a.m. just to go do my workouts before basketball. One, because I was like, oh, I'm not good enough. I need to train extra. But also I did it not because it was 5 a.m. club. I didn't even know it was a thing then. It wasn't even a thing then. It was more so because I was like, that's when nobody's out and nobody can see me.
Right.
And there was like so much shame around it. And now thinking about it like years later, I would be running half marathon with a lot of people being out of shape. I'm like, for me, that was a good reflection moment where I was like, oh, I have done a lot of healing, like a lot of it.
Yes.
And did you have and like this person was talking about how a lot of these behavior patterns or like addictions, things like that we have that are like, that we kind of focus on fixing, a lot of it is our way of trying to regulate ourselves.
Right. And that's kind of where I was going with, it wasn't about the booze. It was never about the booze. Because my husband still drinks. We have parties at our house. There's alcohol all over my house. And there's not one thought that goes to it, because I don't like salivate over it, or, when I have steak, want a glass of wine. None of it. Because all it was, and it was a false belief, was that this made me feel better. It made the
Yeah.
gurgly stop, but then we know that that became a
Yeah, it
physical.
made you to numb the
That
emotion.
became a medical, though, I mean, which was subject to the amount of alcohol I was drinking. And when it was absent, the gurgly started, and you don't know which is which. So you're just like, okay. And I mean, I was not good time Sally. I was sitting in the fucking corner with my little airplane bottles of vodka, of like cheap. I mean, this was like Drano. Like I was not doing the high life. It started when I lived in New York, and no one should live in New York in their 20s and on Wall Street and make the amount of money that we were making. It was stupid. It was ridiculous. It was a load of fun. I will give it that. And I take that. You know what I mean? Like that is an experience. Even 9/11, that experience shaped me. That experience changed the trajectory of my life. And I mean, I was doing everything, cocaine, the ecstasy, all of it. And you mask it as, I'm a good time, I'm out. This is what everybody's doing. But now looking back, I'm like, oh, y'all were fucked up too. Like now we're all owning it and being like those glorious childhood, and that understanding that money, she don't do nothing for you. She can't save you. She's nice to have. I'm not gonna lie. And it's helpful. But it doesn't matter how much money you have. And so, yeah, just trying to numb it. And then it becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy, and you cannot stop it. And I went to rehab the first time, came out into COVID, convinced myself, as all alcoholics do. Well, I was sober for 3 months. I'm good. I got this. I can just have a seltzer. I can just, I'm at the pool. I deserve this. I deserve this. What the fuck did I do it? Anyway, that's a whole different conversation. But that seltzer turned into a gallon of vodka in 72 hours.
Yep.
I was right back on that horse. And again, in that winning style, I was going to be the best damn alcoholic there was. I was going to blow I could out drink anybody. And it's funny because I'll look and I'll go and I'll see patients and I'll say, how much do you drink? And I know to multiply it and everything. And it still didn't even touch mine. How I'm sitting here, how I was still walking, how I didn't kill anybody when I was driving. There's a purpose there. And I better fucking get my head out of my ass and figure out what the hell that purpose is. And,
Yeah.
for right now, it is to let as many women as I can know that I am not unique. I tell these stories. They sound like horror stories. La, 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 la. I'm not unique. And you're not alone. You're not alone. Read my book. You're not alone. And it's even with the coaching, you're not going to come and feel judged with me. Let me promise you that. And looking at, I don't know if you followed the whole P. Diddy thing.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, yeah. So horrible, horrible human being. And to understand what this 19-year-old girl, when she met him and what it turned into, and just abusive, and that shame, that guilt, and to hear well, why didn't she just leave? Why didn't, fuck you. Let me just tell you, because the brain is the most powerful thing.
It's something that I have seen with trauma especially. It's like, don't try to understand somebody who's in survival mode and they have been a lot of times like groomed and like that whole thing. Like it's easy to look from the outside, and when you are in different mental space and have opinion versus when you're actually in it, it's something that it's very
Think
different.
about it this way. And this is not meant to be political, but look at North Korea. Look at Nazi. You have men marching behind, like their brain has been programmed to do this. So to look at a woman who might be pregnant, who is fearful for her children, who will do anything to protect her children, and put herself in the line of harm's way. And to have any judgment on that, when we see and we know what's going on out there now, we know we cannot be stupid and deluded to think that, things are going well.
Yeah.
I love my husband with all of my heart. He is an amazing man. But I look at him all the time, I'm like, dude, your people aren't looking good right now. Just saying. You might want to, and I say to men all the time, they're like, I don't know, speak up. Why are we defending? I know this took a feminist turn, but why are we defending our actions? Why is the accountability not put where it lies, where it begins? But
Yeah.
we as women are putting that accountability on ourselves and on each other. And that is probably one of the most harmful things we can do to each other.
Yeah.
You know,
Speaking on helping women, where can people, before I ask you the last question, where can people connect with you, learn about what you do?
I make it very, very simple. It is thedumpsterfirediaries.com. It's got everything there, how you can work with me one-on-one, how to buy my book. I've got some local events coming up. So
Nice.
instead of, I just put my web team tells me I have too much on that front page. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't want to click anything. We know the attention span of people is a nanosecond. We didn't even get on the whole social media. Dude, if you want to clear your brain, get off social media. Listen to podcasts, listen to books, listen to whatever. Get off that social media. But yes, thedumpsterfirediaries.com, and my book is available on Amazon, and you can click on it right on my website.
All right. And the last question I have is, what is one piece of wisdom you're still learning to live?
That I'm still learning to live. I know it, but that our strategies and our paths are ever evolving. Where I am right now, from where I started in October of 2024, is not even remotely what I thought. But I love it because I allowed myself, when things didn't go my way, this entrepreneurial stuff is for the freaking birds. And when things, rather than giving up, being like, all right, that's not working. Let me sit back. And if I find myself pushing to go after things too hard, everything goes away. And there's a difference between drive and initiative and pushing things. Like
Yep.
that salesy, that I can't stand. Dude, I'm here. You want me? I'm here. Go to the website. Super simple.
Yeah.
But that, to allow those changes. And I do that with my children all the time. My oldest actually wrote the foreword to my book, and he just wrote a sociology paper that he referenced me in many things that I say from my feminist perspective. And the professor's response was, way to go, feminist mom. Because they're learning, because I have 2 boys. I live in a house with 3 men. And I need to impact them on how to be good men. That feminine perspective, that female, because they don't have, it's just not out there. It's just not out there. So, my oldest went to school to swim, and the coach that he loved and he signed off right before the season started. And, we gear these kids, athletes, oh, you must go to Alabama, you got to go here, D1, blah, blah. It's all fucking bullshit. That crap's not real. You see them tossing all of it, but we put this pressure on. So and you put it on yourself. Got to be
Yeah.
number 1. Got to be on this podcast. Got to do that. What's going to come is going to come. And that's life on life's terms. I got no control over it. None.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your story and the wisdom. And for listeners, if there's any of you out there with over 20 years of experience and you want to share your story on the show, we would love to feature you. Check out the show notes with more information. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you in the next episode.